Paul Bloom, professor at Yale, writes that the concept of a supreme being is natural. Deborah Kellerman, professor of psychology, even goes so far as to say that children are born intuitive theists.
What makes the God concept so naturally compelling to the human mind is that it is interconnected with other deep human emotions about the world. Causation is one example. From early childhood, we intuitively believe that nothing occurs without reason. Everything has a cause, and causes have their own causes, and so on in a causal chain. Anyone who's talked to children has experienced this firsthand. Your child asks you, "Why does it rain?" You reply, "Because the clouds release stored water." But why does that happen? Because the sun heats up water that turns it into steam that forms clouds. But why? Unless it's stopped, this questioning from children would continue indefinitely. We're born with this natural intuition to seek out ultimate causal ends.
This intuition about causation supports the notion of a supreme being, which is why many religions independently produced cosmological arguments as proof for the existence of God.
One ultimate cause is necessary to explain the existence of the universe. Humans also have innate intuitions about order and design. From childhood, we innately believe objects around us are purposefully created. When children in studies are asked about the origins of natural things like plants, animals, mountains, they recognize that these things are not man-made, but were made for a purpose. For example, flowers were made to make the world beautiful. Puppies were made to play with children, and so on. How can something both be made for a purpose, but not be man-made? For children, the answer is obvious. God made it.
Olivera Petrovich, Oxford researcher,
Tested Japanese and British children from ages 4 to 7 by showing them photos of natural objects and man-made objects. When the children were then asked questions about the origins of natural objects like mountains and animals, regardless of cultural or religious background, the children predominantly chose God as the answer. They did not give an agnostic answer like nobody knows their origins, or an incorrect answer like those things were made by people. They said that God was the creator. Petrovich called this result absolutely extraordinary because the Japanese Shinto religion doesn't include this idea of God creating anything. So how do Japanese children get the idea that creation is in God's hands when their religion and culture has no such teaching? The researchers also asked the children to describe God. We might expect that the children would give different descriptions of God based on their religious upbringing, but surprisingly, that wasn't the case. Children predominantly conceive of God as a person without a body, similar to notions of gas and air. Petrovich claims that children get the idea of God as man through their religious education, but no child naturally thinks of the creator of the world as a person with a body. It would be an astonishing vindication of Hinduism if children in Mexico raised by non-Hindu parents thought of God as a blue-skinned deity with an elephant head. It would be an astonishing vindication of Christianity if children in China raised by non-Christian parents thought of God as a Trinitarian deity. What children do think, regardless of cultural and religious background, is that the universe was created purposefully by one God without partners, one God who is ever-living, all-powerful, all-knowing, but does not have a bodily form. Where does this intuition come from? Atheists claim that belief in God is ridiculous. Famous atheists like Richard Dawkins claim that believing in God is like believing in a flying spaghetti monster. Dawkins explains that if religious people want to know why atheists don't believe in God, they should just reflect on why they themselves don't believe in something as silly as the flying spaghetti monster or Zeus. But these atheists have simply committed the straw man fallacy. No one naturally believes or is even inclined to believe in the flying spaghetti monster or Zeus, a bearded man living on Mount Olympus. But as study after study proves, people do have a strong natural tendency to believe in God. Why aren't atheists able to acknowledge this established fact? Why do they have to resort to straw man? Are they scared? Atheists might be dismissive and say, so what if we have natural intuitions about God? Such intuitions are merely the byproducts of evolution and therefore have no basis in reality. But the atheists making this argument should quickly realize their mistake. According to them, all our intuitions must be the products of evolution. So applying their same logic, none of our intuitions have a basis in reality. But to put it very bluntly, that's insane. Because in addition to intuitions about God, we're born with intuitions about logic, math, counting, ethics, and even intuitions about the nature of space and time. So according to atheists, all of these intuitions are just a product of blind evolution, which would mean none of them have a basis in reality, which would mean none of them can be trusted, which would mean the human mind itself can't be trusted.
The atheist might respond to this by saying that, unlike intuitions about God, those other intuitions, like logical, empirical, and ethical intuitions, are established on solid, rational grounds. Well, let's just test that. A basic ethical intuition that all humans share is
harming others for no reason is wrong. Atheists endorse this belief, but why? Imagine someone who questions this. Imagine someone who says, there is no scientific or rational evidence proving that harming others is wrong. Only brainwashed nuts would believe that harming others is wrong. Such myths are nothing more than the byproducts of evolution. Or imagine someone else denying logical intuitions like the law of non-contradiction, which is the logical principle that no two contradictory statements can be simultaneously true. Imagine someone saying, there is no empirical basis to this so-called law of non-contradiction. Can you see the law of non-contradiction with a microscope? Can you detect it in a laboratory? Such a law can only be accepted on blind faith.
What could the atheist say to such skeptics? What empirical facts would prove that harming others is wrong, or that the law of non-contradiction is true? All the atheist could say is that these fundamental beliefs just are, or we have to accept them axiomatically, or the beliefs are valid because they agree with our intuitions, or these are things we all just know. But all of these things could also be said about the natural intuitiveness of God.
So by trashing intuitions about God, the atheist also has to trash intuitions about everything else, including logical, empirical, and ethical intuitions, which are at the foundation of science, math, and secular ethics. Atheism thus becomes a self-defeating proposition.